Thank you. Oh,
1 second here, and I'll be, all right. Okay, call the meeting to order. As first order of business, Joe, would you introduce our guests?
Yeah, so I think most of you, if not all of you, already met Elizabeth, right? So Elizabeth is a brand new member of the foundation board of directors, and you live locally, right? So she's well familiar with the museum, has attended a lot of events, and has rubbed elbows with curators and so forth, and enthusiastically jumped in when there was a request for someone to be the foundation liaison board of trustees. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for it.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So I will start by just saying that we do not have a quorum today, so there will be certain things that will flow through the agenda a little bit quicker. So we will not be working on approving minutes today. I think I'll go straight into my report, and starting with an overview. I think on our mind that the group that today we had decided that we would use the opportunity for a board meeting to not only review what we normally do, but also to take the opportunity to recess and go across town and have a look at the Douglas Avenue facility and all the progress that's been made since the last time we visited there, which I think was over a year ago. So that's an exciting opportunity, and I think I'd like everybody to sort of keep in mind as they go over there that this is the future of our research and collections, storage, and I think this is really important that we sort of get a view of size and scope and the ability to utilize that building for different purposes. And I think the other piece of it is that most of the work that's been going on at Douglas Avenue is on maintenance nature. It is not an infrastructure change inside, but it's more just the maintenance that we could use our existing budgets for. So as we plan and set up various objectives to utilize that structure, we're going to have to find the operating budget to make substantial changes where they're needed. So keep an eye on that if you would. Next, on the strategic planning update, I think each one of you received a really nice synopsis that was prepared by staff that has done a really good job of taking many pages of input that came from the Tallahassee that was a function of our strategic planning meeting in Danville recently. This is a really nice synopsis. It doesn't really include every last piece, but I think it hits all the salient points. And as such, I would look to have everybody at least make sure they go back over this and add in any other thoughts that they may have. We're going to talk a little bit more about the strategic planning process when we get the planning committee report a little later. I think my next part I'd like to talk about is introduce. Yes,
I'm sorry, pardon the interruption. When will we have an opportunity to address things that might be missing?
I think we'll do in the strategic planning committee meeting.
Forgive me.
That's okay. No,
Okay, right.
Next, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Whitlow. Jennifer has just recently joined us as administrative coordinator, working with the team, and as Lisa Carter has set up during her time as board chair. It's an opportunity for all of us to get to meet a member of staff and learn about their background and what they're doing for the museum. So I'm going to give the floor to Jennifer and tell us about yourself.
Everybody, I'm Jennifer Whitlow. We met probably online through our emails back and forth. So it's a pleasure to be with you. I come from Barham College. I worked at Barham College for about 10 years, or actually over 10 years. I started in the registrar's office, and that was always fun and learned a lot about academics there. I transitioned to the provost office during the accreditation period and worked with the provost there as he was writing, collecting, analyzing data for that accreditation purpose. That's for the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. If any of you academic people have gone through that, it's quite a task. So I assisted the provost with data collection and those kinds of things until that document was whisk away into the great blue yonder. And then after that, we repositioned my position into something working with more professional programs, including teacher education, social work, and then graduate programs were launched. So I have a varied background, most of it academic wise. And so I appreciate you all letting me be here and working with this team. I was telling some of you that yesterday was my 30th day, so it was our 1 month anniversary. Well, the party was last night. Thank you all for that. So I think it's been a success. I enjoy working with Joe. He is extremely, out of all the people I've ever worked with, highly ethical, highly competent, highly dedicated. I just have really great things, really great things to say about you all. You all are very fortunate to be led by this person. So thank you all for being a part of your lives too.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. You're welcome. We're really glad to have you with us.
I know what takes me to it.
Great. Next, I will talk a little bit about, I can't get into a whole lot of specifics, but we have open board seats and we have terms that have expired. And normally, those things are sort of progressed through the Secretary of the Commonwealth, and we get new appointments. It's been something that's a little point of frustration for us over the last months. Joe has been pursuing that as best he could, and then Abby is also giving us a little bit of an assist from OAG to maybe light a fire in some places, and I think we're going to see some progress going forward. We had one reappointment of Carol that just occurred. We have several that are waiting for reappointment that are eligible, and we have one currently open chair. Right?
That's correct. And if anybody would like to provide a recommendation of somebody that we can nominate or ask to self-nominate, I'm happy to provide the logistics to make that happen.
So there's not like a waiting list right now for.
No, so what I have been talking to the assistant secretary is that, this is traditional, they kind of communicate vagaries. So we did provide one suggestion. I have no idea if they've had success. They seem enthusiastic, but whether they've had success reaching out to this person, I don't know. They did say that they offered a couple of folks the opportunity. They politely declined. So I have a feeling that they're looking for recommendations. So if there are people that you know that can add to the skill set of trustees, I'd be happy again to handle the logistics.
I'd just like to congratulate our colleague Carol Nash to be reappointed, and also if anybody's interested, there's a really nice article that Jane you put out on her reappointment and work that you've been doing over the years. Well, research themselves.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll just add, just for future reference, what we always encourage people who are up for reappointment is to talk to your delegate and ask them for a letter of support. That's what Carol did. I do know in the past it doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened a couple of times in the years I've been here that just didn't happen, right? People didn't use their delegate and they were kind of surprised when they found they were left out in the cold. So even if you think you're solid, I think it's just best practices to inform your delegate to write down letters. Or review.
Board is not here, so I think the documents, as you will see, and Jennifer, I didn't mention, I presume it's you that's put these hot links in these documents.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Really great.
I do like it.
So I presume everyone's had a chance to read over the financial report, and while we can't vote on its acceptance, I just want to know if anybody had any particular questions that they may have somebody from staff here that could help to clarify if there was any particular question.
Not the last minute negative, so I was on the committee meeting.
Okay.
So I just have a couple of things I wanted to point out. One is revenues are strong. I really recommend reading all of the footnotes. When I first went through the document, any of the questions that I had were answered by the footnotes. So they're very comprehensive there. I think anyone who was here last night is aware endowment has now gone over the $1 million threshold. So we had a nice reception to celebrate that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read something about the foundation is dedicating all that excess money over $1 million to particular projects or funding? Did I misread that?
So there's basically four different accounts: there's general account, three restricted accounts. The restricted accounts support recent murderers, the Pete Henniga Memorial Fund, which funds graduate and undergraduate work. In fact, since we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and bring it up. We do have an awardee. It's Dr. Montel Garcia at James Madison University. So through that fund, we're providing $5,000. Frankly, is not the entire interest that has accrued over the years. So that account is going to continue to grow, but he's going to provide $5,000 to have 2 to 3 of his undergraduate students be trained in the methods of analyzing will help me out here, speleothems. Is that the right term? Speleothems, right? Okay, so these are cave features. So you can't go and snap stalactites and stalagmites off of caves anymore. But what he has procured legally, a previously collected sample. Apparently, this is called a cave shield, which is very rare, right? Not all caves have these shields, disc-like structures. What he's going to be doing is to train the students to grind part of it down to expose new material. And apparently, these things grow in a ring-like fashion, very much like trees. So you can get things like age. You can also extract paleoclimate data from these things. So he's going to be providing all that information. The students will present at a conference, an appropriate conference, such as the Cave and Heart Symposium. And then when they're all completed with that, that's when will be donated to the museum for our current collections. So that was a nice bit. So you get back to what you're saying. The last account is a research and collection specific account, and then the lion's share is in general.
That's what I was thinking.
So yeah, so there will be a certain amount available. We're going to use that wisely and correctly because we want that account to continue to accrue funds. But where we need funds for exhibits in particular, because that was the long-term goal of the foundation going back to 2007, was to have a resource to help with exhibits, both manufacture new exhibits and rental of existing. So, so that's where we stand on that. So,
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Big number. Just a couple other things, and then maybe Jonathan wants to mention stuff about some of the capital projects. The one thing I wanted to point out is upcoming submission of a federal congressionally directed spending request for the Young Explorer Center. So who knows how that will go, but that's always fun to ask. And then some notes from the advancement report. We might get into that in more detail. I don't know, but both memberships and partnerships are up 8%. And there's a really nice new addition to the advancement report that shows board and committee service by staff. So you can just see sort of the outreach and the breadth of sort of experience and skill set that we have on staff in terms of all the different commitments they have outside of the museum. It's really good. Was there anything that you guys wanted to mention that?
No, I'm good, but happy to answer your questions. I'll just point out the capital projects, there's some really good information about, like you said, that not only the federal request, but the state request is going to go in for the early childhood learning facility. And then two small corrections. If you read closely under the VMNH Wayne from new facility construction part on page 47, I guess it is. It says that Glave Homes is working on preliminary designs which are due to Department of General Services. That should be mid-spring 2025. So, but in 2026 there. That's a big point out. And I will mention a few things about facilities. And also supported the capital project section.
Thank you for coming together with that. Before we move on, I do need to come back to the folks that are joined us remotely. I presume I see Annie's phone. I presume that's Ann Burnett. I need Ann and Jennifer to required to have you tell us why you're not here today, so that we can have that recorded. So whoever wants to speak first.
Clarify. Just
Yeah.
to
I'll go ahead.
Provide a little confidentiality. A personal reason is sufficient, or if you're 60 miles or further away, that's sufficient. So it doesn't have to be this like
Yeah.
outpouring of what's
Yeah,
happening.
no, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Jennifer?
I'll go ahead. I wasn't able to attend today. I had surgery last Thursday.
Hey, Jennifer, what we need you to do is to just basically state if you're missing the meeting in person because of personal reasons, or something else. We don't need specifics.
Yeah, I'm missing in
Are you
person
muted?
because it's 60 miles away.
Somebody else? Okay, hang on one second. Brian, we can hear
You can hear Lauren before. So.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what, messages we have. Ann Burnett, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. We've got a problem on our end, I think, so please hold tight.
Yeah.
Lauren, since we heard you before, can we still hear
Yeah,
you?
and she's,
Can you hear me now?
Well, something happened to our system.
all right, well, we can come back to it. That's not.
Yeah,
Right. And if any of you want to make a comment, maybe you can throw it in the chat and then we can actually see that we can recognize you or raise your hand and wave so somebody spots you. All right. We're gonna let Brian go.
If anybody's an expert on this, please jump in.
I'm not an expert, but I have
Ann says she's not there for personal.
followed enough Zoom
Okay,
meetings
thank
in the
you.
past to. See the audio and see what the speakers were like.
All right, I think we'll continue. Technical experts work on our connection. So, Joe, would you share with us your report, and we look forward to hearing all the things you're going to tell us.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be repetitive with the upcoming committee reports, so I got a few things particularly I want to pass on. Perhaps the most important, as you know from emailed communication, we did get our AM reaccreditation package submitted November 1st. We have a receipt that AM's received it. What they're going to do over the next couple of months is they're going to go through it and they're going to give recommendations. If there's anything that needs to be tightened up or further documents that need to be uploaded, or if they have any specific questions. In the meantime, we do have the opportunity to edit it. So one of our members of the AAM reaccreditation committee, Dr. Phyllis Newbill from the foundation, she did provide some editorial comments, which I think will help clarify some of the documents. So we'll be uploading that next week. And then we probably around February, AEM will communicate with us in terms of scheduling. And in the March-April timeframe, we will have our visiting team, which will be two museum personnel from other museums that will come and spend probably 3 days, 2 nights here doing a deep dive into our operation. And it's nothing to be worried about. Nobody wants us to fail, right? They all want us to excel and receive accreditation. AAM wants that, the site team wants that, right? But they'll also be very honest, and so this leads back. I don't want to jump ahead to strategic planning, but we're talking about when to release the next strategic plan. Since the site visit and the commission's review of the report that they provide may provide recommendations moving forward. Hey, we got some suggestions how you might better your operation. It might behoove us to wait to release our next strategic plan publicly after we get the recommendations from AAM, right? So it's just something to consider in the future. So I think that's all going just fine. Bear with me once. I just want to make sure I'm not being redundant here. Okay, really, the only other thing that I want to persevere, because everything else that I would cover, I think is going to be covered in upcoming committees, and I can jump in if anything's missed. But I know Brian has it in his advancement report, but if you get a second today, go to the rear of the Hall of Ancient Life. You're gonna see the Gene S. Adams Education Pavilion starting to take shape. There's still a little bit more concrete that needs to be poured. They're letting the main body of the structure cure at this point. Once that's done, there are a few other things. They have to update the electrical, the posts and other equipment need paint job. And then they're going to install railings and then build out the stairs down to Oakdale Street. As such, once we have the green light, we're going to start installing the exhibits. So those will be railing exhibits focusing on Wilson Park and forest ecology. We've got a tree cooking process with an ecological timeline. The Pelagornis, the largest bird that ever flew over the planet Earth, will be assembled and suspended in the ceiling. That's going to be a huge argument house. So if you see me with a black eye at the next board meeting, those passions ran high. It's whether the bird faces the museum or soars away from the museum. Is it tilted this much or that way? All that's going to be an enthusiastic discussion. So I fully hope that, I'm not making promises, but I fully hope that that will be completed by the next board meeting.
With the right feng shui.
With the right feng shui, yeah, as a state of my eye. So anyway, yeah, so everything else I have in my report, I know we can touch on in the committee meetings, but I'll turn things over to Ryan to walk through some of the advancement numbers in his advancement.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Nathan. You covered a lot of the obviously the endowment, success, and continued growth. Where obviously the goal is not any goal beyond that. So appreciate the opportunity to work with the foundation to continue to grow that through growth and new gifts. Just overall visitations up slightly over last year, first quarter. Overall earned revenue. One thing we always track, but we're reporting on this report for the first time, is number of donations. So not the dollar amount, but the actual number of donations that came in was up around 17% over last year. Last year was a record of number of gifts, so the foundation's doing really well as far as gifts, everything from annual fund gifts and memberships to larger corporate partnerships and grants. So good news there, more engagement. And like Nathan mentioned, memberships and corporate partnerships are up as well. There's several grants and partnerships in process. So this is everything from research, education exhibits. Obviously, we have different role with different grants. The curators drive the content. We, as staff and foundation, help facilitate the administrative tasks. So it's invoicing, contracts, things like that. So really good partnership there. Let's see, we talked about the new addition to the report, staff service. Just really proud of staff overall, across the board, different roles. Staff do a great job locally, regionally, nationally. So we won't necessarily include this in every report just because it doesn't really change much by the quarter, but maybe every year, every fall we'll report on that. So proud of staff there. Recent events, so we just had our Bones and Booze event. We had a record for that, just under 2,300 visitors. Of that, we had just over 1,000 Museums for All visitors, which we talked a lot about. So a great response there. Next is going to be our exhibit of closing. The current exhibit, the Masters Tonight exhibit, closes January 12th. The next special exhibit will be our Dinosaurs exhibit, which opens February 8th. So on the 8th is the public opening. The 6th will have a reception again. So hopefully everyone joins for that. We'll have members and support for that February 6th. And then following that, we'll have our next Speakeasy on Starling event February 22nd. Tickets are open for that. Online tickets are available for purchase. It's a limited number of tickets, so definitely encourage you to get those early. And we'll be looking for silent auction items as well. So both boards did a great job last time of providing gift baskets or content for gift baskets. So if at the next meeting you're willing to bring any items, we can put them together. Not me, but or create staff. Happy to help. But so Joe, I don't know if you want to talk more about different items. We had a good Friday last year.
Yeah, Lisa donated the contents for a bourbon tasting basket, and that was a hot item. A lot of competition for it. My wife put together for her hometown a taste of Abingdon, so a bottle of wine, olive oil, other things that she got specifically from local entrepreneurs there. so forth. So, anything along those lines, especially if you're traveling and you can pick up a few things that you want to donate, provide a letter of charitable contribution to you, and you can, bring that, to the next board meeting, or if you're not gonna make it or something like that, I'm sure we can make some kind of arrangement to, these materials, but, this is very important because our strategy last year was to have a wide variety of items for our guests to peruse. So the most expensive item was a week at the beach, donated by, one of our museum supporters. And then some of the other items, the minimum bid was like $20, right? And so everybody had a chance to participate. So many times people go to sign up and like the lowest minimum bid is $250, especially the younger people, they feel left out. So the gift baskets were a great way to engage with a broad array of people, and everything went, I thought, very nicely. It's not, I just want to remind everyone, it's not run as a fundraiser. It's not our goal here. It is to reach outwards towards the community, and we got a lot of goodwill running this. So, but however, we are also, we learned the last one, we paid a black $1,000, something like that. So, we learned a little bit, and I think we can, make sure we have a little bit of seed money for next year. So that would be more of the goal rather than try to bolster the coffers. Thank you.
All right, yeah, happy to answer any questions. Obviously, there's a lot on the report, happy to provide more detail.
All right. Just a comment, Mark. I may sound like a broken record, but I really like the demographics page that shows the map of Virginia and where people are coming from. One thing that I was thinking a little bit about, because of course my home is in the Shenandoah Valley, 8% doesn't sound like much, but if you look at the distance that people are traveling compared to a place like Central Virginia, which is bringing 10% of the visitorship, I'm just wondering whether we're starting to raise our profile in the Shenandoah Valley and people are hearing about it enough that they make the trip. And I would want, just a question to Ryan would be, that 8% is 8% of visitors to the museum. It's not anything based upon population, because I think if you were to compare it to the population, you might find that there are more visitors coming from the Shenandoah Valley as a percentage of the population than from Central Virginia, which
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Per capita.
like
per capita
visitation
rate.
I would be interested to see that. Is that right, Ryan? Is that-
Yeah, so this is the percentage of overall visitation, not broken out by festival or non-festival, just state enrollment. And just highlight too, we had, if you look at the number of states represented in the first quarter, it's 37 states. Obviously, a lot of that is for festivals, but it's amazing that, and it's, some people are going through, some people are visiting family. More and more people, as we talk to, they're there for festival, especially from surrounding states, North Carolina, West Virginia.
Maybe I could work with you offline, Ryan, to put together that statistic, as well as maybe going back a little bit in time and see whether or not that's actually grown. I haven't paid close enough attention to it, but if it has, that would be an argument for how our presence in the Shenandoah Valley has affected visitation.
I think
Are you doing any advertising up like in Waynesboro and places like that? I don't. It's gonna do advertorials and things.
Yeah, definitely some of the targeted social media, paid
Yeah.
advertising where we targeted demographics and regions.
And I will also point out, and you will see this, we do another time sequence to this top, that Southern Virginia, where we're located, is now 41%. It has traditionally been closer to 30-35%. But that increases because of museums for all.
Exactly.
We're so much more accessible for the given part of the population.
It's also more member engagement. So what we're seeing is not only are the number of memberships growing, but they're coming in more often. So that's good. Members too.
Is there a focus on museums for all in these other areas as well? Because
It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
For us, it's the same focus statewide. It's administered through the state.
Right. Okay, good.
And I just realized that 8% is really of the 75% that come from Virginia, right? So it's really a larger percentage of Virginia. Okay, anyway. Fun to
There you
play
go.
statistics.
There's the regional pride.
Yeah. Getting into double digits.
Emma, looks like we're gonna have to push our Central Virginia folks into.
Well,
if they bring the Virginia now, it's a shame, because Mounts are closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm looking at.
Well, it's helpful too, because I've been doing a lot of work out in Southwest Virginia this year, so I'd be interested to like think about how that outreach go out there too. Listen, you guys are not that far. What, 3 hours?
2.5 to Abingdon, little less than 3 to Bristol.
Bristol?
Falls in the Blue Ridge Highlands, I guess.
One of our challenges, though, is that the logical way to get from there to here would be to go over Lover's Leap on Route 58. And that is being expanded to a 4-lane road, and it's just, it becomes Joe's mystery hour. I don't know if I'm gonna be sitting there for 5 minutes waiting, or if I'm gonna be sitting there for half an hour waiting, and I think it does, that does impact people's plans. But once it becomes a 4-lane road, that's gonna cut down travel time for someone traveling from far southwest to southern Virginia, because going all the way up to Roanoke and down is the long way, both mileage and time.
I've been doing it a lot this year. I know it well now.
All right, earn that right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. A lot going on. This morning, like others, we had our research and collections committee. And lively it was, as we had lots of things to talk about, and fantastic ideation coming out today. So Dr. Art Evans will talk to us about that.
Are we already at the research and collection?
Yes, sir.
Where I'm just
There you go.
acting
See?
like I'm somewhere else. Yes, pardon me. As always, I want to encourage everybody to read the quarterly report. The curatorial staff, research and collections staff are incredibly busy, not only with their own research and working with collections, but also sharing their knowledge with museum visitors and going out and giving programs. And I won't take time to go through all of these because it is already there. But I do want to highlight Dr. Cal Ivanov's promotion to full curator. And as I said at the meeting, we're really lucky to have someone of Dr. Ivanov's caliber here at the museum. In fact, we're lucky to have all the curators of such high caliber here. We really are fortunate. But Dr. Ivanov, I met him at my very first board meeting here in 2015, late 2015. And I was introduced, he introduced himself as an ant guy. I thought, okay, an ant guy, I'm a beetle guy, so an ant guy's fine. But in very short order, he has become a master of underrepresented, understudied groups in Virginia, including isopods and some of the smaller orders, earwigs and cockroaches and things like that. And I know on the surface you think, okay, that's great. Where's the value in that? The value in large part in my mind is that we're all interested in the conservation of natural habitats, and you can't begin to conserve natural habitats until you've taken full stock of what's there and in what numbers, and are they increasing, are they decreasing? And this is the kind of critical information that we need to see where are we going in terms of the Commonwealth. And that leads to environmental health, that leads to what's in the environment that we come into contact with all the time. So even the smallest seemingly insignificant creatures have stories to tell us and contain data that help inform our lives and let us know what's going on. And sometimes you could consider them being the canaries in the coal mine. If there are problems, this is where they'll show up first. So having somebody that's looking at these often understudied or unstudied animals is very important. I also want to mention too that Dr. Jackson Means is now a curator, full curator, not a full curator, but he's on the permanent staff now in the collections, and he brings with him a wealth of knowledge as well. He is our myriadologist. He is someone who studies millipedes and centipedes. And I just want to emphasize that the Virginia Museum of Natural History has one of the world's most important collections of millipedes in the world, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Richard Hoffman. And so to have somebody who was able to step right in and make use of that collection and build it and publish on it is no small thing. So things are really happening, certainly within the invertebrate camp.
Hey, Art, can I add something to that?
Please do.
I just learned this yesterday. So Jackson has developed, and Cal for that matter, developed relationships with the caving parsonage in Virginia. And so they provided to them a variety of, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's a particular kind of little millipede, but they're cave specialists. And I had no idea. And the great thing about caves is that they tend to be isolated. You know, if you've got fauna in one cave, and a mile away, you got another cave, oftentimes they're not connected, so you have isolation and therefore specific species. And with that, once word got out, they were working on this stuff. Apparently someone from Alabama connected with the museum and said, gosh, we've got a lot of caves in the north part of the state, all the limestone that's up there. And I forget what Jackson told me. I reserve the right to edit these numbers, but he said something, I'm making this up, but he said it was something like if Virginia has 1,000 caves, Northern Alabama has something like 4,000 caves, right? And they have piles, just heaps of millipedes from these, they don't even know what they are. So those are being shipped to the museum. And it's just a matter of reputation. That this went out there, and it's just amazing to see these dots connected between states and people looking to the Commonwealth for specific skill sets.
Well, and just to mention that millipedes are a major player in the leaf litter, in breaking it down and recycling those nutrients so they become available to other organisms, and they're underappreciated for that. And so this is one of the reasons why there's a considerable amount of interest, because they're not of agricultural importance, they're not of medical importance. They've been long ignored, but now that we have a better understanding of forest systems and how they work, we're starting to look at the different players in these systems, and the turnover, the breakdown of fallen leaf litter and twigs and things like that is huge in replenishing the soil. Millipedes are a big part of that. So this is really an important group of organisms. And a lot of that work is going on right here. At the meeting, we had a great discussion about the summary from our Museum Without Walls, our retreat, and the role of research and collections that it plays in the museum. And I think that'll come up more when we talk about our strategic initiatives coming up. But I think I'm going to leave it at that for now, simply because there's just a lot of detailed stuff. But I do encourage all of you to read the report, because the curators are doing some fantastic things. And it's not just research. They are working hard to share their research with a variety of audiences. For example, on Tuesday, Dr. Means is giving a presentation on millipedes in Waynesboro, the Waynesboro Theater, and that will be streamed live, so you have the opportunity to check that out. I do want to mention that Dr. Bassett is expanding their expertise in underwater archaeology with some investigations at Smiths Mountain Lake, and they found evidence of old foundations and roads and things like that. So this is an interesting avenue of research that's relatively new. And of course, his work with the Cultural Heritage Monitoring Lab continues, and sadly, is monitoring the destruction of museum and archaeological sites and cultural heritage sites in Ukraine and Sudan, both countries that are torn by war. And it's incredibly important work that he's involved in keeping track of the destruction that's going on, and monitoring what's lost and sharing that with the world. They've generated a number of reports, and links to those open access reports are available in the research and collections report. Dr. Pritchard is finishing up a manuscript for publication on a 55-million-year-old snake from Virginia that is related to boas. I think that's pretty neat. And he's also working on completing a chapter on trypanosaurs. I didn't know what a trypanosaur was. I'm just an entomologist. So I looked up trypanosaur, and how cool. This is an ancient group of reptiles from North America during the Triassic. So we're talking about 250 to 200 million years ago. and really neat looking animals that sort of look like a chameleon, but they're not. Dr. Kuhn is headed to Madagascar next month, and she's collecting morphological specimens and molecular vouchers for here in Virginia for what is purported to be a new species of lungless salamander here in the state. That's no small thing. We don't discover a new vertebrate every day, and right here in our midst. And she's also been involved in the acceptance of a herp collection of reptiles and amphibians from Sweetbriar College. This is one of the important roles of the Natural History Museum too, is that for one reason or another, there are universities that can't maintain their collections. Natural history collections were very important. A lot of institutions got on board, but sadly, many of these institutions have lost the ability to maintain these collections. We are the repository of these orphan collections, and there's a tremendous amount of important data here. And this is part of our roles, part of our.
It's not just a repository, but the repository by charter.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's our mandate from the state, not just because I say so, and I'm always waving my arms and getting red faced and excited about this. Also, we talked a little bit, there's efforts underway to come up with Dr. Nancy Moncrief's replacement as the mammologist here. So we're looking for someone to step in and care for our mammal and bird collections. In the meeting, we had a very lively discussion about space. And I'll talk more about that later when we get to our strategic plan, but space is absolutely critical. We are out of space for most of our collections. And we've asked that the curators continue their efforts to let us know what their space needs are and also the nature of their collections, so we get a better idea of not just another building or an addition, but also what kind of environmental requirements are necessary to maintain those collections in perpetuity. I think that's all for me now. Thank you.
Great meeting. Nathan, can you share with us education from the
Sure. We were lucky enough to get to meet this morning. Unfortunately, we did not get to meet in August. COVID, so it's her fault. I guess we could have been without her, but I don't really know what we should talk about. So we got a little bit of a double update on things that have been going on at the museum. Of course, all this information is in the packet, so feel free to take a look at that. But I did want to point out a couple of things that I thought were interesting. Sounds like we're doing sort of an annual teacher appreciation night here at the museum now. It happens in May, sort of towards the end of the school year. And the last one, there were over 100 teachers here. They got to participate in some raffles, have a nice social time, and most importantly, enjoy some margaritas, which are critical for teachers these days. Programs and numbers of folks served by those programs continues to trend upward compared to some of our most immediate previous years. That's really good. One of the notes about some of the programs is that there was a discussion about the summer camps, how they weren't completely maxed out this year, but it still sounds like it's just a really successful program. Kids got to make some little keychains using this low force laser cutting thing, which sounds fun. I'm a little jealous. And then just a quick note about some staff changes. So Christy and Jordan are very busy right now because we're down an educator. Terry Tatum resigned to formally teach in the Franklin County school system, but there's help on the way. Let me make sure I get this name right. Miss Annabelle Seacreast is going to be joining in December. She's still in school at ETSU, but she's locally familiar with, she's been an interpreter educator for Ferry State Park for 2 years. So I know Christy and her team are looking forward to them joining. But yeah, please read the reports from you.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. All right, facilities, Tom.
Yeah, so we had a chance to meet this morning as a facilities committee. Jennifer and I represented the board, and we had a number of staff there. Of course, there are 3 facilities that are highlighted, Douglas Avenue, which we're going to get a chance to tour, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about that, so you'll get to see that in person. Starling Avenue and the Waynesboro Mobile Science Outreach Trailer. Couple of things regarding Starling Avenue, of course, we all know that the Education Pavilion is now under construction. I had a chance to actually visit it last night, they poured some concrete. There's some posts up and ceiling, and as Joe mentioned, they're gonna be hanging on harness shortly. So that's well underway. They're also planning to reseal the parking lot, and that'll come out of our maintenance reserve budget. And then there's a couple of proposals or requests to fund our Young Explorer Center, which is our repurposed library in Starling Avenue. The $640K request, federal one, and then $2 million request in the state budget. So we'll hope that one of those comes through. And we can proceed with our retrofit of, or both, yeah, wouldn't hurt. Yep. So that's Starling Avenue. The mobile science trailer, I think this was mentioned last meeting. We have $100K in our maintenance reserve budget to do some upgrade and repair, working on things like the hydraulics and the HVAC system and some of the electric systems. And that's gonna go out for a consultant to look at, give us some recommendations. And then that trailer will probably be away for a little while it gets restored and hopefully back in time. Riverfest in Waynesboro to reopen. We had really good attendance, as we mentioned in the past, at our farmers market Saturdays. Volunteers who open that trailer for us, we get people walking through there. So I think it's been a good addition, our presence in Waynesboro. And with that, I don't have any other things to add.
Any questions on facilities?
I just want to point out both Art and Emma are going to be connecting us with folks who run mobile education units and so forth. So both science and humanities related, but I mean, operations, and we do have to have a policy in place here. So it isn't just sitting up in several staffers' heads. So we'll follow best practices and work with these folks. I'm hoping they already have something that we can borrow from and use the template to create our own.
How long has that been there and how often is it open?
It has been there almost a year, and we had it open. When did the farmers market run? It just closed in October.
It just closed in October. It started in May.
So we were running it on Saturdays during the farmers market hours. Then there were a few special events that we had, Riverfest, Foliage Fest, a couple of others as well.
I wonder if that at all is helping with those numbers.
Well, that's my thinking.
Yeah.
People are certainly aware that the museum exists, and when they do visit, we always point out the main campus is at Martinsville. It's worth that trip down there. So, yeah, again, I'd like to see how that trend is changing.
I just like to see, this is just my historic view of things, that I think when people learn that there's a museum here, they think we're some 2-bit visitor center or something, to be blunt, right? And when they come here, they're almost uniformly amazed. It's like, oh my God, I had no idea you guys are serious about what you do, right? And so I think the same thing happened with the trailer. The trailers are tough, right? You're limited space. You don't have 24/7 environmental control. You got to be careful. All these kinds of things, but the staff did pretty good considering they had no time, no personnel, no budget, right? And I think people walked through and was like, well damn, these real artifacts. Yeah. I can't believe it, And so I think that's part of the growing reputation of the museum, part thanks to the trailer.
And thanks to all the volunteers in Waynesboro that have been manning that trailer, especially Glenn's wife. So I think that's been great.
Just to add what you were saying, I've been mentoring a high school student who's now a freshman at Roanoke College. Pardon me, a beetle nut. His parents are both academics, and I urged them to come here to the Natural History Museum, and they did. They met with Cal, but both of them told me how impressed they were with this place. And I told them, until you walk in the door, you have no idea. And they were amazed, so well done again.
That's exactly why we use some of the, I know we're jumping committees here, but exactly we use, over the past couple of years, some of the privately raised funds out of the Waynesboro region to bus people down here, right? So that way the community could see, firsthand what's going on.
Thank you. That's it, Tom? You?
Yeah.
Any other questions? So we are going to recess now for a voyage across town to see the Douglas Avenue facility. We really appreciate if we got a couple of people that can take more than one person.
I've got room for 3 more people.
So we're not
I can take.
taking a huge caravan across town.
And Laura, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I don't know if we want to tell.
Lauren and Jennifer, it is, yes, they put them in the chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, it is 10 minutes to 11. We're anticipating it's gonna take about 5 minutes to transit over there, 5 minutes back, maybe about a half hour or so. We'll be back here and get settled back in. So if you wanna maybe check back in around 11:20, 11:25, something like that. Appreciate your patience.
So we're gonna, when we come back, we're gonna do lunch and talking at the same time.
I'm gonna make a quick pit stop. If anyone wants to go with me, I'll just meet you in the lobby right outside here.
First come, first serve for me. I'm gonna be out on the plaza.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan left early.
Oh.
Well, I think they have, all those have name tags, so
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
gonna put their food. I'll put out to get that. Nice.
And then there's some of the folks who are occasional employees, in other words, there are people on command, like Christie has a guy that you call on EV retired, some teacher.
Is this working lunch or?
It is, it is a working lunch.
So you don't have to eat, you don't want, but grab your lunch and.
I am going to eat.
Yes, up to basically through January. Is that? Yeah. Cause, we've got like those bleeding, we have like more.
Make sure I got the language.
You know, just, hands, you know, to get in this. Which eight or what you got or two? That would let us know. Well, and he would probably be, I don't know if he would object to you being in the same class.
Grab your lunch, because we're gonna do it together here. Whatever you pick, I don't know what you guys pick.
You don't know what you got. I have a list.
Yeah.
I found our correspondence.
There you go.
You gotta go back to that.
And I was right.
You got the lobster, right?
Yeah, right. Just the best.
Yeah. Was number 8.
Oh, no problem.
Crack cocaine.
Yeah, there is that.
Oh, and this is.
You don't bring the stuff out of the way.
Oh, that's not any.
BLT needs to put the LT on there.
Yeah, no, I don't know, so probably not. I think you're gonna put your own deal there.
Hold on, I can grab one. Oh, no. This is the tomato, yeah. Hold on, here's yours.
Pretty much.
It's okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hard one. They're pretty quiet in there. Maybe, we don't know that they're there.
You do it.
And, here might be on, maybe not here.
Let's see, you got the number 13.
Well,
Let's see, you got the close of. Here we go.
actually, you win the lottery top, you get up, and that way you can finish and then.
So Douglas Avenue, I think is going to be multi-generational. So getting it in a key, start with then figuring out the adaptive reuse, how it's gonna.
Yep.
Support our operation.
Oh, that was something with that.
And
Yeah. Okay. It's a number 8. Okay.
Use regions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna go ahead and get started, so we can move the process along here. There she is. And Jennifer, are you there? Just want to make sure.
Yep, I'm here.
No, that's perfect. Okay, thanks everybody for taking that jaunt across town, and thanks to staff for getting over there and spending some time there afterwards, to turn off every light and close the doors, and that was a great tour, and it's just what a tremendous amount of work that has been done.
Yeah.
Just huge credit to the team for getting that done, so miles to go.
I'm sorry, it looks really good. I know everyone that was part of that, I'm sure they're not all here.
No.
They know that.
No.
It looks really good.
I they took it seriously. It did take some prodding, I mean, not so much the cleaning up, everyone was happy to pitch in, but, there was just stuff that just did not need to little.
Yep. Back rats.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move forward with, waiting for a report from Tom.
Yep, so representing the Wayne for Advocacy Committee, you heard that the detailed design is, at this point, looking to complete the preliminaries, which we hope to have done by mid-spring next year. And we did get the money released for the work with Valley Home, so we'll continue to do that. There has been some inflation in the cost, and so we're having to adjust our goals relative to how much funding we still have remaining, but suffice it to say that we'll have some good drawings to put in front of the General Assembly and our legislators. I will say that advocacy is in the name of the committee, and one of the things that I want to, recognize is that we did have recent elections. So if you've had a change in who your legislator is, I would encourage you to reach out to them, not specifically about Waynesboro, but about the museum overall and educate them if you have the opportunity to do so. I've been doing that with my representatives who didn't change, but nonetheless deserve an update. I'm not going to get into too much detail. We are, as you heard, still active in the community with opening the trailer, and our lecture series is started up again in September. We had a lecture on gold mining in Virginia, if you're interested in that topic. In fact, the gold rush started in Virginia. And so if you want to hear more of that, is in the VMNH YouTube channel. So you can listen to that talk. And as was already announced, Jackson Mead will be coming on Tuesday this week. So you can listen in to his talk on millipedes. Joe is working with Parks and Rec to design some trail signs along the Greenway. And we will be recognized as a museum on those signs, as well as having links to updates on the Waynesboro campus. So I don't think I have much more unless there are questions. Do you have anything on this? Nope. Okay.
That it? Okay, great. Move on to the strategic planning committee. We met yesterday morning and discussed the synopsis that's in your hands. I think everybody's got a copy of that now, as we talked about before. Breaking down the discussion into these 6 groups of topics. I think they definitely adequately address each of the key parts of our charter. And I think that they go into not as much depth as you may want, but I think they hit the highlights. There are some areas where I think some folks are going to want to add some additional points. Joe, I'm not sure how much feedback that you've got from any of the board members after their, let's call it, report came back out. So prior to having some additional comments right here in this group, my thought was, and I'd like to hear what other people want to do. I'd like to give another 3 weeks or so based on this document back out to the board to make additional comments, and additions, deletions, thoughts of that they think may not have been adequately addressed. And I think that includes staff. I know that should include staff and the foundation for sure. So that would be my sort of overview to this. From the chair perspective, I'd like us to continue to think bigger. And I know that sometimes that's hard in the world of financial constraints. But I think if we don't think bigger, both from what we want to do and how we want to fund it, and I've had some discussions with some folks both on the board and in the foundation where, we just hit this great milestone of $1 million. But how big can we think? Doubling is nice, tripling is nice, quadrupling is nice, but how do you get to that next level of acceleration of the plans for the museum? So I'm going to ask the board to have another look, give it some thought. I think the framework is great. I don't know that we need to do anything with the framework whatsoever. It's perfect. So I would ask, does anybody have any additional discussion they have on this document? And I'll start with Art, because I know he does.
So then I can relax. One of the things I noticed that was missing in the individual summaries that were given in the primary document, and therefore it's missing on this summary here. Somehow it left me with the impression that Douglas Avenue is our answer to expanded collection space. And that's not what we were talking about at all. It certainly serves a short-term release, absolutely. But we also had discussed at prior meetings a couple times about expanding the museum footprint. 10,000 square feet was bandied around, there's some discussion of what that means and so on and so forth. It's very preliminary, I know. But I just want to make it clear, at least from my perspective, that as far as collections goes, Douglas Avenue is a short-term solution to part of our collections issue. The long term is that we're looking at an expansion of the museum footprint and/or we're looking maybe for an additional facility. Like I said, we've been talking about the possibility maybe of the YMCA building. But I want to make sure that somehow gets filtered into the a key point in the final discussion and for strategic planning going forward.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting observation. Based on our meeting this morning as well, my thought to that is that we should really have a strategic plan for that rather than, as a detailed strategic plan that addresses some of the things we talked about this morning is what do we got now? What do we need? How do we anticipate additional functional areas that may need additional storage? Do that full study and then see how that fits into Douglas Avenue and then see what others.
Well, and as our discussion this morning, as we've asked the curators to help us, let us know in more detail what they have now, and what they need. And of course, Tom brought up, the next step, once we get that together, is see if we can push forward with a feasibility study. So we can really see what's available. But I just want to make sure that in the basic documents going forward, that's we're all on the same page.
I guess, I understand what you're saying. I guess where I'm at is I don't really know whether it's enough. It might not, right? But I don't know that we know yet it's enough.
Douglas Avenue?
Yeah,
No.
I don't know that we know, no, we don't have the measures, right? We have the perceptions, right?
Sure.
But I don't know that we have the measures. And that's what I'm trying to get to is
True.
part of this. And it's not just the study for this particular question, but it's the plan over time to continue watching that space and those space needs with a view 3, 4, 5 years out, because that's what it's going to take to fund it,
Right.
build it.
Right now, as I understand it, Douglas Avenue is being rehabilitated to its former glory. That's not where we need to be for long-term collection storage. So that's the next step. So whether we decide that existing space is where we want to be for portions of the collection, that's fine. But I just don't want to leave the impression that, once this rehab takes place, that problem solved. That's just the start.
One question I would have is, what do we mean in short term versus long term? And that is our strategic plan designed for 5 years, is it? So when you use short term, long term, are you talking about within 5 years, outside of 5 years, or are you thinking short term?
Short term is 5 years, and then, but we're looking at a long-term plan to how do we expand the facilities now for the growth of collections, so we can't not only to accommodate
For the next decade.
the collections we already can accommodate that are already in our care, but how do we factor in growth after that? We want to create a space ideally that, gives us a little expansion room, continuum growth, but not just take care of what we have now.
So I was just gonna say, this is perfect because, this was meant to be,
A discussion.
the starting
Generate
point.
discussion.
Yeah.
And so the next iteration will probably be 2 pages long or something like
Right.
that. And under long-term vision and growth, the last bullet developed context of a new wing. We did not mention specifically public programming, research and collections and stuff. That's a great next step.
Okay.
In terms of fleshing that out.
That's great. So I think for the next steps, go back to the board for additional comments. We don't get them. We just go with people that want to comment.
How would you, who receives those and how?
So I'll work with Joe to try to put something together. We can share it with the
Okay.
strategic planning committee and then try to get it back out from our committee to the board.
Great.
And let me talk with staff because on one hand, it seems like an easy thing to do. Email it to say 2 key staffers and board chair, but then that can create some confusion. I'm gonna look and see what electronic resources we have where we can upload comments to one.
Much better.
Yeah, like a survey.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I think there were lots of other pertinent comments made within the committee meeting. regarding this document, and then we'll incorporate that in the next go round. See if I have any notes here on that. The other one that was, to me, was a little bit understated is how we think about synergies between the 6 items and try to find ways to keep bringing that back into the process. And I think we've noted it in a couple of places, but as we discussed today, there were some interesting crossover opportunities between education and R&C. So I think there's, there's a lot of topics to do there. So, the strategic plan committee is also charged with DEI, and so we've had some additional discussions there. We were fortunate to get a document from a fellow board member, Robert Nunes, that shared some thoughts about some surveys that were done of the museum world and how boards can begin to address DEI issues with a more strategic mindset, a longer term mindset. And I think that needs to be a bit more internalized, but I know everybody got a copy of that from Joe. And Jennifer, is anybody have any comments of that right now that they want to talk about? If not, I think we'll discuss that further in the committee. Why are you looking at me? No. I look in that direction, that's what I see. Okay. Any other strategic planning committee notes? I don't think there were. Right? Okay. Next one.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not on that committee, but if possible, I would like to tie the strategic plan to each of the 6 of the code.
Right. Yep.
Just because that is our foundation.
Yep.
And to ensure that, just as a reminder to the board, to staff, to the foundation, that like we're reacting to what we were established to do.
No, absolutely. And that came up in our discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. I'm really glad you're reminding us.
Yeah, that's good because that makes it clear that.
Yeah,
it's
no.
part of our mandate.
Right.
That's good. Next, Roberta's not here today, so I mean, Joe gave us an overview of where we are in reaccreditation, so I don't think there needs to be anything further there. I had a couple of points in ending that I just wanted to add in for myself. First, I want to thank all the committee chairs and staff for the work putting this meeting together for sure. But I talked about this last meeting. I'll talk about it every meeting until we see something happen. But I've made a point to come down and go to some of the events at the museum as they occur, and I really want to encourage board members to get down here and participate and see the energy of the community and the energy of the staff as they address and put these events together. They're fun, they're active, they're good for 5-year-olds, and they're good for 65-year-olds. So, I think, you would really enjoy it. And I know the staff appreciates having a greater level of board involvement. So I'm just pushing that agenda as much as I can. We had a discussion amongst a few of us that one of the things we might want to consider, and I think we'll bring this to the executive committee, is perhaps looking at ways that we can make these meetings a little bit more effective in terms of not necessarily that we're not effective in communicating where we're going and what we've accomplished, but more in terms of using these as a foundation to have some ideation and those discussions to be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more strategic. And so that will require board members to probably read a lot more materials and absorb them and have questions prepared rather than have them, basically give it back to them at the table here. So we're going to be looking at that, how we could generate some change there. I think that would be really good for everybody. And we need to find some ways to increase board participation, obviously. So those were the key ones I have. And then last, the next board meeting is February 1st. here. And that's all I had. Does anybody else have any other matters or announcements? Oh, and then, yeah, before I finish, Elizabeth, any comments, any thoughts, any observations you'd like to share with us? We really appreciate the participation. It's really helpful. And, we're glad to listen to any advice. That's all I have. So, without further ado, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
so adjourned, we're done.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.